right? Roughly 5 to 10 common traits. But, you know, before we get into the conversation aspect, I think it's good to touch on some common denominators prior to the sales conversation. And there's really three. And the first one, and excuse me, I'm battling a little bit of laryngitis today, but the first one that is a common denominator between successful brokers such as, you know, Bediger, Stone, Gandolfo, and Feldman is attitude and enthusiasm, you know, and they love what they do. And enthusiasm is all in their success. Some saved their career. Others, it was the most important factor in selling. You know, if you look at Feldman, he believed that enthusiasm was the excitement in the salesman's voice, not what you say, but how you say it. If you look at Gandolfo, he believed enthusiasm was the key ingredient of a successful person, no matter what the business. Which leads into the second common denominator, which is make the calls and see the people. You know, technology might change, the way a producer's prospect may change. We all know social media has changed our everyday lives. You know, the way people see and meet might change, but the fact that producers make the calls hasn't changed. You know, Bediger stated that stated from a president from Fidelity Mutual who said the business narrows down to one thing, and that's seeing the people. And Bediger believed him and sold more business in the following 10 weeks than he sold in the previous 10 months. Feldman said that there's no easy way. You have to make the calls. Nothing happens until you make the calls. And then the third, sell yourself, which is make the most important sale first. And I ask myself this every day. I ask this question when a broker asks me about how to sell or how to position permanent life insurance, disability, or critical illness. You know, do I have one? You know, can I sell something I do not believe enough in to buy myself? How can I overcome that objection? How can I afford it if I feel the same way? You know, Gandolfo said that life insurance is good for the prospect, it's good for the producer too. And Feldman stated that the producer has to buy it first. If the producer doesn't buy it, then the producer will not sell it. And, you know, there are other common denominators, you know, that I like to talk about, such as questions that they ask or packages that they sell. But that is the three common denominators prior to the sale that I like to touch upon.
All right. With these, then, you know, what are some of the questions then they ask the clients once they do make the calls and see the people?
Yeah, you know, after you have that positive attitude, after you make the calls, you sell yourself, you make the most important sale first, which is yourself. When you meet with the client, you got to have a good icebreaker question. And, you know, when I go out and talk to producers, whether I'm meeting with them one-on-one or I meet with a group, or even if I'm talking to somebody over the phone, I really like to ask them, what is your icebreaker question? And one that I've been taught through my mentor that have stuck with me is this question. I am not the first broker that you've met with over the last 3 years. Can you tell me a little bit about your last experience? And I like this question a lot because it'll tell you everything the last broker did right, and more importantly, everything that they did wrong and why they're approaching you as the agent to talk to them about their business. You know, your client's going to tell you exactly how they want to be treated. You know, that's one type of question. For others, you know, it could be a value system question, core value system. You know, and one that I was taught would be a question like this. You know, you're walking with your significant other, you're walking down the street, and you're having a conversation. Out of the corner of your eye, you see a ball heading towards down the driveway, heading towards the street, and you see a young child out of the corner of your eye. It looks like they're kind of following that ball, and you ask the client, well, while you're telling them the story, well, what would you do? And if they would say, well, I would just go on my way. It's not my business. You know, is that the type of person that you want to work with? And so for some people, you know, that's okay. For others, they might say, well, no, I want to make sure that I work with people that have the same values as I do. And if I saw somebody out of the corner of my eye that was chasing a ball down the street and it was a young child, I would be the first one to get ready to run out there and see if there's a way that I can save them from not getting hit by a car. You know, so the icebreaker question, I feel, is a great way for agents to start building that rapport, start building that trust, and kind of take it away from going right into a sale by asking, you know, what's your financial plan, or what brought you here today. Now, with that being said, you know, people hate to be sold, but they love to buy. And what's the secret? And the secret to all this is good questions, and I like to refer to those as good impact questions. And I've spoken to quite a few brokers. I've spoken to my mentors, and I've asked them, well, how many questions should you have? How many good impact questions should you have? And I've always been told somewhere in the realm of 20 to 25 questions that are impact questions. And, you know, if you don't have 20 to 25 good impact questions, well, join the club. 95% of all salespeople don't have 15 to 25 good impact questions. And these questions are really designed to create emotion, designed to make your clients think. Remember, have you ever heard the expression, you know, or you're with the client and you ask them a good impact question, and the client states to you, no one has ever asked me that question before? When you hear that from a client, that is a good, you know, that's a good impact question. That's a winning question. That's definitely one that you want to have written down. Well, let's look at some of these examples, or some examples of impact questions. Well, here's one that I like to use all the time if you're working with people who are under the age of 60. What is your human economic life value? Or what keeps you up at night? What are your goals? What are your personal? What are your financial goals? How much is your life worth? How much did you insure it for? How would your family get money out of the business if you don't come back tomorrow? Or instead of, you know, tell me a little bit about your business, how did you start your business? People always love to talk about their business. Now, with the questions that I've been mentioning, you know, if you notice, a common theme behind these questions is really none of them are yes or no questions. These questions are designed to help the prospect see that the prospect has a problem. And guess what? You have the solutions, not products. Remember, it's what the product does for the problem that you have uncovered. You know, there's a couple other questions that I would also state, you know, that, you know, here's one from Feldman. What if you were to say, if I told you, I want 30% of everything you have in this world? This forces the prospect to face the fact that taxes will hit the estate once they pass. Or, do you want your little boy to go to school? It's education that costs money. May I talk to you about it? Which is cheaper, paying for college in 4 years or 18 years? 18 years to pay for education if you begin now. If you can't begin now, and then Feldman goes on to state, if you can't begin now, could you, right now, pay for the first year of college? These are great questions, great impact questions to be able to add to your repertoire, and this is only just a few. If there's one thing that I would mention to everybody on this line is to have 10, 15, 20, 25 good impact questions that you can utilize within the sales interview.
Okay, well that sounds logical. Let's kind of review there. So you first off you wanted to ask, you know, or what was their last experience like, because you want to get a relationship or know what they know about life insurance and what their expectations are. The second level, you said, Bobby, if I believe right, was the value question. Well, you know, want to work with somebody and you want to appear, and you and the client want to be on the same value plane that creates the best opportunity for a sale. And then the third one is these 20 or 15 to 25 questions that are based on somewhat of emotion feelings, but are based on the need and what's going on in their life and what would happen if something did happen. So far, if that's correct, we haven't even talked about product. Is that correct, Bobby?
Yeah, you are correct. And I look at it as it's not really about the product. And in our last principle, if you want to call it that, it's not about what the product is; it's what the product does. And these agents, these brokers, they really don't think of it as a product. They don't really talk product. They talk packages. They find excuse me, they find the problem, and then they got to find ways to promote the solution. So if you look at sales, excuse me here, one moment. If you look at sales packages, Feldman designed these packages to solve specific problems. And most of these packages solve the prospect's fundamentals need for cash. So he kept it simple. The simpler, the better. Each package solved the problem. Let's say here is one package that he solved, an education package. And he asked this question: you want to be sure your grandchild goes to college. May I show you this idea? And packages could come from anything: newspapers, local news, internet. Feldman would test the packages on his family. He wanted his packages so simple it could be understood by a high school student. Would a high school student understand your presentations? How about this simple concept? Discounted dollars. Ben would tell the prospects, give me 2 cents and I'll give you $1. I'll put the dollar in escrow for a year, and if anything happens to you, I will keep the 2 cents and you'll get the $1. And we will repeat this year after year. At 2 cents a year, it takes a long time to pay for $1 for $1, doesn't it? And I look back at that human economic life value question. When I talk to individual brokers about asking this question, ask your client this question, or have you ever asked your client this question: what is your human economic life value? Why? Because again, you're not talking about product. What you're doing is you're educating the client. And what is a client's human economic life value? Well, that's essentially how much they're worth now, how much they're worth without having a job change, a cost of living increase, any promotions or anything. It's how much they're making today. And if you look at an individual, let's say you have one of your clients, you ask them this question: what's your human economic life value? They might say, well, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Nobody's ever asked me that question before. And you ask them how much they're making this year. They might say $50,000. Well, somebody's making $50,000 a year and they're 35 years old and they want to retire at 65. Well, they're going to work for another 30 years. So if you take 30 years times 50,000, that's $1.5 million is what they're essentially worth to their family. That's what this individual, this client, is working for. He's working for retirement. He's working for retirement. He's working for his son or daughter's education, mortgage, could be their 401ks, their, anything. This is what their human economic life value is. So once you go through what your human economic life value is, what can impact your human economic life value? Well, a client might say, well, getting sick. Well, that is correct. Getting sick is something that can affect the human economic life value. Well, what else could? Being sick or injured. That could definitely impact the human economic life value. And the one that everybody knows, because everybody's going to experience this, is going to be death. So I just brought in life insurance into the mix. I brought in life insurance to protect them for their mortgage, but more importantly, not just their mortgage. Well, if you happen to die today, what does that mean for your significant other, your children? What is that going to do to your mortgage? How are they going to live over the next 5 years? Now you're starting to build a life insurance plan without having to talk to them about life insurance. You're bringing up, if you ask this question following up to what can impact your human economic life value, and the clients, and you go through that list with the client, you might want to say, well, what's most important to you? And they might say, well, protecting against death, protecting about sickness. If I can't work, how am I going to pay the bills, whether you're sick or injured? Well, now you can add riders to your life plan. You're building a package to protect them on their life insurance side. You're protecting the package to protect them with the critical illness insurance rider. You're providing them a life insurance plan that's protecting them with disability insurance if they become sick or injured and cannot work. So these packages or these conversations are designed for you, not to really talk about packages, but talk about products or prices or features, is to try to figure out what's most important to your client, and do they have a problem? Are they protected for these problems?
And most of the time, Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you're looking at life insurance sales should be stages. I mean, you start out and you get them thinking about these issues. You then address this concerns in stages. Maybe the most important right now is their mortgage. That's number one thing on their mind. They don't even think about these other things, but that gives the opportunity when you're looking at clients, and the reason for you get that first mortgage, you get that term, and now you should be doing reviews, working on a plan so that this client can step through and cover all these other things. Very rarely can you cover them all in one meeting, and so you go through and do each one as you go through. That's when you bring in the product, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Each individual problem.
That is correct.
Okay, so now we started talking, about product, and we're just looking at each individual problem, trying to rate them according to what's most important to the client. Mortgage, you do term, and if you need income, you got to have a cash value, and nothing better and more secure anymore than life insurance, especially a dividend-paying life insurance. And when you're talking about that, how can you emphasize or get the right questions to promote life insurance? We hear so many things about all these other theoretical interests. What's the key question when you talk about Assurity's whole life with dividend paying? What makes that special, and why should more people be looking at that?
Well, I'm going to go back and state that if you want to start selling cash accumulation life insurance, again, the number one thing that you should have is a policy on yourself. And if you're looking at life insurance and you want to sell dividend paying plans and you have one on yourself, well, I think one of the valuable ideas that I've been taught from my mentors is that story sell. And selling is, in a sense, storytelling, putting ideas into action. If you want to sell cash accumulation life insurance or whole life participating life insurance, you have a policy on yourself, you got to be able to portray to the client why you have this product. Why did you buy this product? What's it going to do? How are you funding it? How are you going to use it in the future? And if you basically give a sales story, the listener, basically if the salesperson's sales story gives the listener an idea that it will make him or her money or solve a problem that they have, he or she will basically the client will get excited, and they're going to want to do business with that salesperson because they have told them that story. And the key here is that the story must relate directly to the client's problem. So if you've asked questions to uncover the problem, that the client would like to have some cash, and here's a question that I would ask: are you happy with the amount of savings that you've accumulated over the last 3 years? And if you're working with middle American clients, most of them probably would say no. And I'll even use myself as an example. If you ask me if I'm happy with the amount of money that I've saved over the last 3 years, I would tell you no. And here's why. Because I'll save up money for 2 years, 3 years, and then what comes out? You get a new curved television set. I went out and bought one about 2 months ago. I treated myself to that. But was I saving money for that? No, I was saving money because because I wanted to save money for an emergency. But now, if you look at my portfolio of products that I have with myself, I do have a cash accumulation UL. I do have a whole life plan. And do I think of those as products that I'm going to take money out to go buy a TV? Absolutely not. It's almost out of sight, out of mind. Those products I'm gearing towards, I purchase for retirement or for true emergencies. So a client like myself, if you would ask me that question, well, I would say no. So what's the next frame of thought? Will it be, well, let's design a package that I can get you how much money would you like to save over the course of 10 or 20 years? The number that I would pull out of my hat would be $10,000 or $20,000. Well, are we going to do that in a bank account where somebody like myself is going to have access to it when the next TV comes out? Probably not. So let's fund a whole life plan. Let's tell them the story. Tell them the story of why you purchased the whole life plan, and see if this will help solve their problem. Now, the key here is that again, the story must relate directly to the client's problem. This doesn't have to be my problem if I go out and sell this policy, because let's say I'm not 32 years old, I might be 60 years old, and that's not my same problem. So how can I relate to that problem? Is by discussing another client, their problem, or a friend that had the same problem, and this is what we did. But how do salespeople learn to tell stories well? And it's really by telling stories and improving each time the story is told. And so with all this being said, Mark, these are essentially the key principles that we went over today, or principles of the mentors that I've had, successful brokers, and even successful brokers that I haven't had the opportunity to meet, like Feldman and Godolpho and Gittimer and people like that. It's the attitude and enthusiasm. They make the calls, they see the people. You have to sell yourself first. That's the most important sale. Being able to ask good questions, whether that be icebreaker questions or impact questions, design the packages, and then be able to have stories to relate to these individuals. And with that being said, Mark, those are the common denominators that I see in the industry, and I hope that this call, I hope that this has touched some people to think about some idea, or give them some ideas of what they could be using in their practice. And with that, do you have any questions, any other questions, or should we open it up and see if anybody else has any questions?
Well, I don't. I just want to compliment. I think that's exactly what we want to hear. And, don't be afraid to ask questions. The more you ask, the more you get in these conversations, the better, more easily they come and answer everybody's questions. Conversations are just that, interacting with the clients. There isn't probably anybody out there that's got too much life insurance. So life insurance is one of those things that is forgotten about. The low interest rate environment and the stock markets and those kind of things make everybody concerned. We can take away those concerns with a combination of packages and everything else and their needs with life insurance. It's not only good for the mortgage insurance, but supplying income and also your cash value, just like you stated, life insurance down the road. It's and it's a great way to not put something away that is truly a planned feature in their life for expenses that are probably a little bit unknown. That's why it's called insurance. Bobby, I'm going to try and unmute everybody. If there are any questions, I see any left here on the typed in one. Let's see here. I'm going to try and audio. Don't see any questions right now in there, Bobby, so I really want to appreciate you taking the time. We would like to remind you that we will have another Life Weekly here at Premier on Monday, every Mondays of this year. Bobby, I want to thank you again for taking part. We'll look for those questions. There'll be some here in our email, and questions going on. We'll Get to those as the week goes on. Call Premier at 800-365-8208. Ask for the life insurance department. And myself or Kathy or one of our assistants will help you. Again, thank you, Bobby. Look forward to working with the surety again on one of these life weeklies in the near future. Have a great day.